Hi YouTubers, my name is Kevin and you're watching The Royal We. This message, we're going to talk about being enough. And when I talk about being enough, I mean being enough so that you do not need toxic relationships and you don't need to find another narcissistically abusive relationship whatsoever. I recently had a client who made this statement to me over the phone. She said, Kevin, I am ready for a non-toxic relationship. I deserve a relationship that is not toxic. And I challenged her with this response. I said, what if I told you that you will not find a relationship outside of yourself that is not toxic? And she gasped in horror, but she understood what I was saying, because the reality is, and I'm sure many of you know this by now, that the world is full of toxicity. When your eyes open because of narcissistic abuse, you see the world for what it really is. You see people as inherently selfish, not inherently good, like the bogus things that we learned about in Sunday school. The world is inherently selfish and people are inherently selfish. As a matter of fact, according to the NCADV, National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, 48% of the people, both men and women, are experiencing some form of psychological, mental, emotional abuse right now, even as we speak. This qualifies as narcissism and narcissistic abuse. This is the world we live in. This is the reality. It's not doom or gloom. It's just the reality. I'm not being a pessimist here. I'm just sharing the truth that some of us often don't want to think about, but in the back of our minds and in our subconscious, we know this, right? But I told her this in my response. I said, listen now, you can have toxic-free relationships when you decide to live from within yourself. And you do everything from living within yourself outward. Okay, now this is important, so we're going to talk more about this in this message. Now I'm going to compare something called Maslow's Hierarchy of human needs, right? And knowing what's enough for your life. And I'm going to compare that to what the ancient understanding is, the ancient literature, the Bible has to say about this, okay? So according to Maslow's hierarchy of human necessity or human needs, we have basic needs for our human survival. We have food and water, right? And obviously these are real needs, because without this, without food and water, these bodies would shrivel up and die, right? So that's a given. The next thing, the next level in Maslow's hierarchy is shelter, is safety. Obviously we need this, otherwise the elements of the air and the rain and the sun would beat the living daylights out of us every single day. And we wouldn't last very long now, would we? Okay. Now, it's after that that things get really screwed up with Maslow's hierarchy. The next thing he has up on the pyramid of his pyramid is belonging. So after we have food and water, okay, after we have safety and shelter, okay, then it's, well, now you need belonging. Well, this messes everything up, because now what you're doing is running out trying to find belonging. And how many of you know by now that running around trying to find belonging, trying to find non-toxic relationships, trying to find where you fit in backfires? Because you end up being with people you have no business being with, doing things you have no business doing, going places you have no business going, and you end up in an abusive, toxic situation. Right? Right. Then the next thing that Maslow has after that is you need respect. You need esteem from people. So now you're running around trying to find respect from people. Right? How well does that work? Again, you're going to run into toxic situations and abusive people who are going to compete with you for respect, because they're looking for the same thing. So you got a bunch of people out there scrambling for belonging and scrambling for respect. Now, the very top of the pyramid, Maslow, I believe, actually got something right. It's just in the wrong order. And I'm going to share it with you. The top of Maslow's pyramid says it's self-actualization. That's the peak. That's the last thing, and I think it's indicated that rarely people reach this. And do you know what it is? What it's described as? It's described as knowing your purpose, living to your full potential. Why does he have this as the last thing at the top of the pyramid? He's basically saying you have to first get food and water, then get safety and shelter, then find your belonging, then find respect, and then you can go for your full potential. Baloney! Nonsense! And that screwed everybody up. And that type of philosophy is backed up in public schools. Public schools has our children all jacked up because you go in there and you compete and you learn how to do everything just like Johnny. And it kind of makes that whole thing real. You have to find belonging, find your group of friends, find your gang. That's the first order. Find your gang. What's that teaching people? You have to find where you fit in so you can be a follower or something. Right? So here's what I would say. I would say knock out the need for belonging. Knock out the need for esteem and respect. And let that living to your full potential drop down 2 levels. Boom, boom. So it's right on top of your safety. So you have food, water, you have safety, housing, and then the next thing you do is live towards your full potential. Live for your purpose. Because you can do that without anybody else. And now watch this. When you live for your full potential, according to your purpose, according to how you were designed to live, guess what's going to happen? You're going to find your belonging. People are going to gravitate towards you because you're living your potential. And then guess what? After that in the journey, you're somewhere going to find respect. You see that? Maslow kind of had it right, but he had some things backwards. Maybe he did it on purpose so people like you and me can figure it out right now. I don't know. But let me share with you what the ancient literature now has to say about being enough, about who you are. All right? The ancient literature says this, that in the beginning you were created in the image of God. Now, what's the image of God? Well, according to the ancient Hebrew people, God is called by a name. The name is Elohim. Elohim is a plurality, meaning gods, but not like many different gods. It's a compound unity, meaning there's different qualities making up this one God. That's Elohim. And that's what they called Elohim. And now the ancient literature says that we're made in this image, and there was one made in the beginning. In this image, let us make this person in our image, in our likeness, right? So we're made in the image of Elohim, meaning we're made up of multiple qualities making up one. So we talk about things like the soul. It's not talking about skin yet because the skin was not formed until later in the ancient literature. But initially, the image was the soul, the mind, and the heart. The soul, we can't fathom what the soul is. The soul is what life is. The mind is not our brain. The brain is flesh. The mind that we have is what gives us the ability to think about our own thoughts. That's that crazy stuff, right? The heart, it's not that beating red thing that pumps blood. That's a flesh, that's organ. The heart is what they talk about that can be broken. You know, when someone says they have a broken heart, it has nothing to do with that thing that's beating. It's something different. It's a different heart that's being talked about. So these are just a few of the components that I know of that make up this image that we are. And that is enough. In the beginning, there wasn't 2. There was just 1. And guess what? It was made complete. The person was made complete. And the person was given orders to watch over the garden. Now, it wasn't until the flesh was made that then, later on in Genesis, according to ancient understandings, then a partner was made. A suitable helpmate was made from the rib, a part of the flesh. It wasn't a soul mate, it was a flesh mate. It wasn't, the ancient literature didn't say that God took a piece of the soul and made another soul. No, it says he did what? Took a rib, a part of the bone, a part of the flesh, and made another skin, if you will. Okay? So the purpose of relationships are for helpmates, but first you have to understand that you are enough, you have a purpose, you are complete on your own outside of your basic requirements. Food, water, shelter. After that, find your purpose. And then when you know what your purpose is, look for a suitable helpmate that's in line with your purpose. Let's stop living backwards, where we have food, water, shelter. Then we look for a partner, a belonging, before we even know what our purpose in life is, because that's what hurts us. All right. Listen, I want to be a part of your healing journey. Visit www.jointheroyalwe.com where you can schedule your one-on-one appointment with me. We can do FaceTime for you Apple users. We could also schedule phone conversations. We could also do email, but email is a little bit slow. Also, join me every Monday night at 9 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time for Royal We Live Chat. It's an opportunity for you to hang out as a community, ask your questions. You can even call in for free and chat with things that are going on a weekly basis. Saturday mornings is Royal We Fellowship. This is an in-depth Bible study based on a new-found understanding of the reality of narcissism and the toxicity of the world we live in. And we'll be back with more videos right here on the Royal We.